A very good morning to dear students. So the today's tutorial is on drugs, and the drugs which we commonly used in emergency and in high risk pregnancy is antihypertensive and anticonvulsant, right? So let's come first to the antihypertensives. So the antihypertensive drug which we use in uh, preeclampsia or pregnancy-induced hypertension is labetalol. It's a beta blocker, and we have nifedipine, right? So labetalol is available as both as tablet or in injectable form, right? So this is the injection labetalol. If you all can see, right? Right, it is available as label. There are different trade names which are available. So labetalol is one injection, and this is also available as labetalol tablet. So two forms of labetalol are available. One is injectable and one is tablet. Now in tablet form, it is given if the hypertension is mild to moderate, and if there is severe hypertension, then we have to give in the intravenous form, right? So how do you give it? So say patient has come to you with blood pressure of 140/90, 150/90, 160/100 up to moderate. So you're going to start the labetalol oral tablet. Please mute yourself. So you are going to start it as 100 milligram tablet twice or thrice a day. The actual dose is thrice a day, TID, and then you are going to monitor her blood pressure every four hourly whenever she is indoor. And if she's a mild hypertension, so if she's taking one tablet maybe twice a day, then in that case you will have to tell her to monitor blood pressure at a PHC or at her home if she has a blood pressure device. If you are affording, you must tell them to buy a blood pressure device so that they can monitor their blood pressure at home. Right? So then the blood pressure is maintained at around 140/90 millimeters of mercury. You should not let the blood pressure go down so low that it will hamper the uteroplacental blood flow. So the aim of antihypertensive treatment in pregnancy is to get the blood pressure down to 140/90 millimeters of mercury. Now, when do you give labetalol injection? So, labetalol injection or parenteral dose is given whenever there is hypertensive crisis or hypertensive emergency. Means what? The blood pressure is say 160, 110 and above. There are patients who come with blood pressure of 200 by 120 like that. So what is the risk? The risk is of complications of hypertensive, uh, severe hypertension. So these hypertension complications are there for the mother and for the fetus. So more than fetus, the hypertensive emergency is for the mother. So what you do in preeclampsia, you then give injection labetalol. So injection labetalol is available as a 4 ml, 5 ml ampule. You have to read the ampule and read how much is the content. And then one ampule has around 20 milligram of labetalol, right? And the dose is you have to give 20 milligram IV slow over a period of say 10 minutes or so, and then stop the medication if the BP gets down to below. Don't never try to get the blood pressure below 150/90 suddenly. So it's a gradual fall in blood pressure which you should achieve, and you are going to give it very slow, right? So the main importance of using any parenteral hypertension antihypertensive is to use it in a slow way, slow duration, and at the same time, don't get the blood pressure suddenly down to below 140/90, and then otherwise there will be chance of intracranial hemorrhage or anywhere hemorrhage in the body, sudden drop in blood pressure. So you have to be very slow in this process, right? Now, the dose is 20 milligram or so. So what happens if the blood pressure does not fall after 15-20 minutes? You again take and the blood pressure refuses to go down. So one of the factors which is not allowing the blood pressure to go down is the pathology itself. So you have to take decisions in certain patient that this patient needs delivery now, right? So that decision has to be taken by the time all the reports and all. You're going to send all the reports of the patient, blood reports. You're going to assess the fetus, and even if with all the reports being normal, if the blood pressure is not falling down, you can again give another, after half an hour or so, you can give another 20 milligram of labetalol. Such 20 milligram labetalol's IV slow can be given, say 4 or 5 times. But it is the risk of having maternal complications is very high, and most of the obstetricians will take the decision of delivery if such thing happens, right? So another risk which the mother has with this hypertension is, or preeclampsia, is patient can get convulsions. So that drug is magnesium sulfate. So presently we saw labetalol as an antihypertensive that is available as tablet, and it is available as injectable. So tablet is available as 100 milligram. The tablet is available as 100 milligram orally, thrice in a day you have to give, and this is available as injectable form for hypertensive crisis, and you always give it as 20 milligram IV slow dose, bolus dose, right? If you are in doubt, first give 10 milligrams, see how is the response, and then again 10 milligram can be given. Don't be in hurry to get the blood pressure down suddenly below 140/90, otherwise it will be a complication created by our treatment, right? And one thing is the mother can have hemorrhage, and another thing is because you suddenly drop the blood pressure now, there can be reduction in the uteroplacental flow, which can cause again intrauterine fetal distress, or fetal hypoxia, or even fetal death, right? Now, what are the contraindications? So this is a beta blocker, so you have to make sure that the patient doesn't have history of bronchial asthma. So if there is history of bronchial asthma, then you will have to use another antihypertensive drug which is available. You have n number of antihypertensive drugs, but very few are suitable to the pregnancy, right? Or suitable in pregnancy, or category B or A we call it as in drugs in pregnancy. There are different categories in which a particular drug fits, and those categories which are given by FDA are for knowing whether it is safe, from safety point of view, whether it is safe or not during pregnancy, right? So there is a category A in which there is no side effect or no problem, teratogenic effect to the fetus. Then category B is the drug is safe, most of the time it is safe, and the disadvantages are least. Category C is like the disadvantages are little more than the advantages. Category like that you have categories, and category X last is a category in which it is highly contraindicated in pregnancy. So it depends upon the condition of the mother and how much that mother, or the mother needs that particular drug. Because though mother and fetus are two patients, it is always the mother as the first patient whom you are going to treat and you are concerned with. Mother can again produce a child, but you cannot just compromise mother's health at the cost, just because you want to save the baby. So if it is required, say valvular heart disease patient, embryonic period, you are going to give maybe low molecular weight heparin. But if valvular replacement has been done, you will have to switch over to again to comastatins or warfarin, so that there is no chance of clot formation. So this is all about the categories under which the drugs come. So most of the drugs which we use are either in category A and B. There are only certain conditions of chronic maternal conditions in which the patient is already on certain drugs, and then there is a dilemma whether you want to change the drug or not. Then most of the time category C comes into picture. Otherwise category B and A are only routinely used. So all these drugs which we are discussing, they are in category B, right? So now, say a patient has bronchial asthma, then what are you going to do? You will require another drug. So you have another drug that is nifedipine. So nifedipine is available either as tablets, routine tablet, white tablets, or it is available as soft gel capsules, right? So these soft gel capsules have liquid form drug. So you can just give a pin prick and then, or needle prick, sterile needle clip and prick, and you can put that drug below her tongue, or, like that it can be used in hypertensive crisis. So that is why these soft gel capsules are made, right? So tablet is available as 10 milligram, and even this is available as 10 and 5 milligram. So both tablets are available as tablets, and soft gels are available as 5 milligram or 10 milligram dose, and they are given every 8 hourly orally. Even these can be given orally, but otherwise it is meant for that hypertensive crisis to give sublingually. It is absorbed through mucosa, it is absorbed fast, right? So it is available only as oral or sublingual form, and labetalol is available as injectable and tablet form. So these are these two antihypertensives are routinely used in pregnancy. The better drug in today's evidence-based medicine is labetalol, followed by this. Other antihypertensives which are used are alpha methyl dopa, and we as PG used it as a first line of treatment. But the better hypertension control is seen with labetalol. With studies it has been proved. So we are now using labetalol, right? So this is all about this. There is no contraindication to nifedipine as such. So if you don't know, you are confused with which antihypertensive to give in emergency, you start this. The patient is not having any, is not giving you any. Uh, patient is saying it has come with eclampsia, and you're not sure whether she has asthma or not. Then maybe in that situation you can use this as sublingual dose. But most of the time you can use labetalol also, right? But first line of treatment in hypertension management, if somebody asks you, it is going to be labetalol orally, or second line will be nifedipine. And the hypertensive crisis, you are going to use labetalol IV, 20 milligrams slow dose. The only contraindication to labetalol is wherever you don't want smooth muscle contraction to happen, most of the time bronchial asthma, right? So the next drug which we have is magnesium sulfate. Now, we will not go much into the details of theoretical aspect of eclampsia. I'm just going to discuss about this magnesium sulfate. Now, magnesium sulfate is a wonder drug for obstetrician because it has three roles, right? So, if somebody asks you to pick up a drug, and if you pick up magnesium sulfate, it will be best, but you should know the thing very clearly. Magnesium sulfate is used as an anticonvulsant in eclampsia. It is used as tocolytic in preterm labor, and it is a wonderful drug which has been proved recently in the recent past as a neuroprotector for the fetus whenever the patient is in preterm labor. So you give it to the mother, and then it passively goes to the fetus, and this fetus, if delivers after 48 hours, after 24 hours, say at 32 weeks, the neuroprotection means the intraventricular hemorrhage, and even the developmental brain development is much better in such feti, right? So three uses of magnesium sulfate: one as an anticonvulsant in eclampsia, second as a preterm labor as a tocolytic, and third as a uh, neuroprotector in preterm labor, right? So this is about magnesium sulfate. So these are the three indications. Now, how it is given? The magnesium sulfate initially, when it was given only for preterm labor, only for eclampsia, it was given in Pritchard regimen. So in Pritchard regimen, what was done was 4 gram IV was given slow, and then 5 gram each was given. So the total loading dose was 14, out of which 14 gram, out of which 5 gram and 5 gram were given in the buttocks. Why buttocks? Because the volume of drug is very high, and such a large volume cannot be given in this muscle. It has to be a large muscle. So gluteal muscle, gluteus maximus is a larger muscle. So you give 5 gram into each buttock, and 4 gram was given IV slow. So the total dose was 14 gram, right? But eventually they realized that such a high dose can create problems in the mother in the form of respiratory depression. So now what we do is we give 4 gram IV slow as a bolus dose in first 15 minutes or so, and then you are going to start in magnesium sulfate in a drip format, and the dose which is given is 1 gram per hour, and we continue this drip for 24 hours from the last convulsion. Means what? Say one patient has come to you with single convulsion, say today morning 9 o'clock, right? So you will continue this magnesium sulfate drip 1 gram per hour till tomorrow morning 9 o'clock. Another patient comes to you who had first convulsion at 9 o'clock in the morning. You started magnesium sulfate, and then in spite of all that, she gets another convulsion at 12 noon. So you'll have to continue the magnesium sulfate next day till 12 noon. So 24 hours from the last conversion, you have to continue the magnesium sulfate. Now, what is the dose and how do you calculate? Magnesium sulfate is available as in two concentrations. One is available as 50% and another is available as 20%. So when it is available as 50% solution, it means that 50 weight by volume. It means that if you want 2 gram, you will require 4 cc of this ampule, right? So if I want to give 4 gram, when it is a 50% solution, it is 50% dilute, right? So if I want 4 gram, I will require 8 cc of this uh, drug, right? So one ampule has say 2 cc, so you will have to give 8 cc. So 4 ampules you will require to give IV bolus dose of 4 gram, right? Or say if it is a 20% solution, it is available as two forms. One is 50%, which you have to add to the drip, and one is 20%, which you can directly load into syringe because it is dilute now. 20% means, and directly give it slow for initial loading dose. So 20% solution if you take, and if you want 1 gram, you will require 5 cc, 5 times, because 20% is 5 times it has been diluted, right? So if you want 1 gram, you will require 5 cc. So now how much do you want to give initial bolus dose? 4 gram, right? So one for 1 gram of 20% solution, I needed 5 cc. So for 4 gram IV of 20% solution, I will require 20 cc, right? So 20, see 1 gram is 5 cc, so 4 gram is 20 cc. So 20 cc is loaded as a loading dose, dilute dose of magnesium sulfate for the initial loading dose in eclampsia, right? And then in eclampsia, preterm labor, or even neuroprotection, the dose is same, the drip rate is same. So you don't have to you don't have to remember different doses. It's very easy. Magnesium sulfate is given in this format only, right? So you are going to give 4 gram IV slow, and that for that you are going to take 20% ampule, right? And then that itself, you don't have to dilute it. It will become 20 cc you are going to give of 20%, right? But say in casualty now the drug is not available. So what you will need is you have 50% solution, right? So 50% may 1 cc, right? You want 1 gram, you will require 2 cc. Now you want to give bolus dose of 4 gram, right? So double the, if 50% है तो उसको double करिए, so it will become 8 cc. But that 8 cc is quite concentrated, so that 8 cc you cannot give over 20 minutes. So that 8 cc is diluted with normal saline and it is made up to 20 cc, and now you give it as IV slow bolus in the next 15 to 20 minutes. So this is how you need to calculate the magnesium sulfate for loading dose. And then you have to add magnesium sulfate, say 10 gram in a D5 solution for, and give it 1 gram per hour. If you have syringe pump, you can calculate the dose, put it in a syringe, preloaded syringe, and then set the arrangement or set the whole syringe at the rate so that 1 gram per hour goes to the mother, right? So it acts at the synaptic levels of the neurons, and it prevents the convulsion. It also, so it reduces the activity. It reduces the smooth muscle activity in the same way so that it can be used for preterm labor, right? Now, how do you monitor the patient? This, if it is given at a higher dose or if it accumulates in the body because of the impaired renal function in preeclampsia, it is going to affect 2, 3 systems. One is it will affect the respiratory system. It can lead to respiratory depression. It can lead to even reflexes become poor. So you have to monitor all these things. So whenever the patient is on magnesium sulfate drip, specifically in preeclampsia, because the rest of the two patients, preterm labor and in neuroprotection, they both are little stable patients. They don't have multi-organ involvement. In pre-eclampsia, there can be kidney involvement, and you have to be very sure that whatever magnesium sulfate is given, it is not accumulating in the body because of impaired renal function. So what are you going to monitor? You are going to monitor the respiratory rate. You are going to monitor urine output. It has to be 30 cc per hour minimum. The respiratory rate has to be more than 14 or 12 per minute. And then you have to see the reflexes, right? So all these things, because the drug itself can completely make the patient comatose. So such a thing should not happen, right? The whole purpose is to sedate the patient. So this is about how you monitor the patient when the patient is on magnesium sulfate. So what do you do if there is overdose, right? So another way of monitoring the magnesium sulfate is to note the serum magnesium level. Okay? You should not allow it to go beyond 8 milliequivalents per liter. Right? So this can also be done every 4 to 6 hourly to see the level in the blood. If it goes beyond certain limit, this 8 milliequivalent per minute, then you need not you can continue, you can discontinue the dose. And if it goes beyond 12, you will have to give antidote. So this antidote is calcium gluconate. So you give 10% 10 cc calcium or gluconate very slowly to antidote as an antidote for magnesium sulfate. So most of the things we have discussed about the antihypertensives and anticonvulsants. Just a few quick remark on what do you do or what are the other alternatives which are available. If magnesium sulfate is not available or if it doesn't work, if patient can go into status eclampticus, then the next drug will be phenytoin sodium, the other antihypertensive. Why are we not using phenytoin sodium in pregnancy? When other seizure disorders we are using phenytoin. Why are we not using in pregnancy? Because it does not have the studies have shown that magnesium sulfate in pregnancy is much more effective than phenytoin, and at the same time it has least effects on the fetus. Phenytoin has effects on the fetus, so magnesium sulfate is a better drug of choice as an anticonvulsant. But if it doesn't work, then the next drug will be phenytoin. If that also doesn't help, status eclampticus patient, you'll have to put the patient under general anesthesia and put her on ventilator and completely make her this thing under a general anesthesia, make her comatose, and then you will have to deliver her depending upon condition, obstetric condition. So this is about magnesium sulfate. Then coming to the antihypertensives which are used, which are available other than these drugs, are not very safe in pregnancy. So the two choices which we have is labetalol and nifedipine, and the drug which was used previous alpha methyl dopa is also there, but it is little less effective in controlling hypertension, but it is one of the safest drugs in pregnancy, alpha methyl dopa, right? And I think we have covered most of the aspects. One of the CET questions is AC inhibitors. They are contraindicated in pregnancy because they have detrimental effect on the euplasticity blood flow also, right? So I think I was clear about these two drugs, right? So any queries if you have, you can always discuss. Magnesium sulfate, we cannot discuss and remember it in a single day. Magnesium sulfate dose, how it is calculated, you'll have to read it repeatedly, mathematically write it down, like with 50%, 1 gram is 2 cc, 20% 1 gram is 5 cc, and then you will have to calculate number of cc's or number of ampules you are going to require for a particular patient of eclampsia, right? So 20% you are going to require 10 ampules maybe, isn't it? Like that you'll have to calculate. So I think we have discussed all these drugs in detail. Any other queries you have, we can discuss.